The relic drifted like a corpse that refused to decompose. Admiral Catherine observed it from the command tier, hands folded behind his dorsal plates, eyes fixed on the projection. 180 kilometers of intact hull, no heat bloom, no power spike. Dead. Perfectly dead. The kind of artifact junior archivists argued over, not something that delayed a council enforcement fleet of 10,000 hulls. Confirm inactivity, he said. The answer arrived in numbers. 0 emissions. 0 internal motion. 0 response to 1,000 hails broadcast across 31 frequencies. The ship did not even acknowledge passive scan pings. It drifted on a stable vector, 3 astronomical units beyond the last mapped beacon, as inert as vacuum stone. Catherine allowed himself a thin smile. "And the humans?" he asked. The tactical aide rotated the feed. 67 vessels. Compact. Armored. Ugly in the way unrefined tools often were. They held position between the relic and the council formation, broadcasting a claim of discovery and custodial rights under their local statutes. "They insist the ship is theirs," the aide said. "By legacy." A ripple of amusement moved across the bridge. Legacy. As if history granted ownership in council space. "Transmit notice of seizure," Catherine replied. "Add standard processing clause. Unauthorized claimants will be removed." Removed was a flexible word. It covered evacuation. It covered detention. It covered liquidation if resistance exceeded thresholds. Catherine had signed all 3 in the last 6 hours. The humans answered with a request for delay. 6 minutes. Time, they said, to establish dialogue. Dialogue with a relic. Mockery escaped him before he could stop it. "They think it listens," he said. "Like a pet." Punchline hung in the air, clean and sharp. The bridge laughed. Orders flowed. Boarding groups prepped. Salvage tugs moved into position at 40 kilometers. Legal clerks queued ownership transfer codes. The relic's mass alone would fund 3 council campaigns once stripped. Human vessels are maneuvering, tactical reported. Holding formation. No weapons charge. Of course not. Their kind favored speeches. Appeals. They believed war could be stalled with words. Catherine authorized escalation to Phase 2. Begin clearance. Any humans who interfere are to be neutralized. No survivors on the relic. If it held a crew once, it does not now. Casual. Procedural. Clean. Another punchline, delivered without raising his voice. They can file objections from the void. Timers began to count down. 3 minutes to boarding range. 2 to hard seizure. 1 to history closing another forgotten chapter. The humans transmitted again. Not a plea. A notice. They were initiating a final hail. 1 voice only. Catherine barely glanced at the feed. "Record it," he said. "It will be instructive." The relic remained dark. Silent. Dead. Until the channel opened. And for the first time in millennia, the ship listened. They demanded a ceasefire with the calm of people used to being obeyed. The human transmission cut through the command channel without flourish or volume. No raised voices. No threats. A single statement repeated in 3 trade languages and 1 archaic council dialect. Halt seizure operations. Suspend boarding. Establish neutral distance. Admiral Catherine listened with visible irritation. "On what authority?" he asked, allowing the question to carry its own answer. The human reply was immediate. Discovery rights. Custodial protection. A claim older than council charters, logged in their archives and transmitted in full. Timestamped. Cross-referenced. Clean. Catherine dismissed it with a flick of his crest. Claims require recognition. You have none. The numbers favored him. 10,000 council vessels holding a layered perimeter. 67 human ships clustered tight, armor forward, weapons dark. The relic still drifted between them, silent and inert at 0.0 emissions. Withdraw, Catherine ordered. You are obstructing lawful processing. The humans did not move. For 90 seconds, nothing happened. No maneuvering. No charge signatures. Just two forces holding geometry at 12,000 kilometers, the relic dead center. Then the human commander spoke again. One sentence. We request permission to speak to the ship. Laughter broke across multiple bridges. Catherine let it run for 3 seconds before cutting the channel. There is nothing to speak to, he said. Begin final countdown. Salvage tugs advanced to 30 kilometers. Boarding craft spun up. Timers resumed their descent. 45 seconds to hard contact. The humans did not protest. Instead, one vessel eased forward. Not fast. Not aggressive. A deliberate burn at 0.3 g, closing to 20 kilometers from the relic's hull. External mics opened. No encryption. No amplification. A human voice filled the channel. It did not issue a command. It did not declare ownership. It said a name. The effect was immediate and measurable. Power bloomed across the relic's surface in cascading bands, lighting hull geometry the Council had catalogued as purely decorative. Internal mass readings shifted by 0.8%. Long dormant systems spun up in sequence, one every 0.6 seconds, like a heartbeat returning. Gasps replaced laughter. Energy spike confirmed, tactical reported. Non-reactor origin. Distributed awakening pattern. The relic's orientation corrected by 3 degrees. Not toward the humans. Toward the Council fleet. A new channel opened. Ancient syntax. Perfectly rendered. Addressed not to Catherine, but to the human ship by registry code, rank, and genetic marker. Acknowledgement complete. Punchline landed hard. It only answered them. Catherine felt something unfamiliar tighten along his spine. Jam it, he snapped. They tried. The signal passed through interference as if it were not there. The human spoke once more, voice steady. Cease fire. Last warning. The relic's forward structures unfolded. Not weapons. Sensors. Targeting arrays spanning thousands of kilometers, mapping Council formations in real time. Catherine recovered his composure. You do not dictate terms, he said. Fire authorization stands. Council weapons began to charge. The human ships did not move. They did not need to. Because the relic was no longer dead, and the standoff had become a threat. They fired first, exactly as doctrine predicted. Admiral Catherine authorized a measured volley, demonstrative force, not annihilation. Enough to shatter human resolve. Enough to remind everyone watching which side defined violence in this region of space. Energy lances crossed the void in disciplined arcs. 64 beams. Coherent, phased, tuned for penetration against modern composite armor. They struck the human escort line at a range of 9,200 kilometers. Impact registered across every Council sensor suite. And then nothing happened. No bloom. No fracture. No cascade failure. The beams dispersed on contact, light bending and thinning as if poured across deep water. Human hulls glowed briefly, a dull amber sheen spreading over armor plates, then faded back to black. Damage report, Catherine demanded. The answer came in fractions. Absorption confirmed, Tactical said slowly. Average intake 99.97%. Residual heat vented in under 4 seconds. Silence fell across the bridge. Secondary fire followed. Heavier emitters this time. 8 cruisers joined the barrage, output increased by 30%. The relic was added as a target, center mass, continuous beam, 10-second duration. The ancient ship did not evade. It drank the energy. Readings spiked, then stabilized. Internal redistribution patterns lit the schematic, conduits older than Council metallurgy routing power laterally, vertically, everywhere at once. Dissipation loss registered at 0.03%. Punch line cut through the feed. 0.97% ineffective. Observers across Allied fleets began transmitting queries, verification requests, accusations of sensor fault. Catherine ignored them. Again, he said. Maximum output. The third volley was everything short of planetary assault. Dozens of emitters fired in overlapping harmonics, designed to overwhelm shields through frequency saturation. The human escorts were bracketed. The relic was caged in light. Human ships registered internal temperature rises of 12 degrees. Structural stress climbed to 5% tolerance, then leveled. Power draw increased. That was all. Human vessels are venting, Tactical reported. They are routing excess energy to heat sinks. Then to propulsion reserves. Catherine's mandibles tightened. The relic responded differently. It did not vent. It changed. Hull patterns shifted, plates sliding by millimeters to expose layers beneath, crystalline lattices that refracted incoming fire into clean, measurable vectors. Power stores climbed. Capacitors, dormant for millennia, filled with captured force. The human spoke once, calmly, into an open channel. "You are charging us," the voice said. "Stop." Council fire continued for another 6 seconds. Habit. Pride. Momentum. Then the relic spoke again, not in words but in numbers. A system broadcast visible to every sensor within 2 light seconds. Incoming energy measured. Absorbed. Logged. Punchline followed, mercilessly precise. Energy received. 0 casualties. Catherine felt the battle pivot under his feet. They had not negated the attack through luck or trickery. This was design. Architecture built to endure sustained fire from an era that predated the Council itself. "Cease fire," he ordered, too late. The humans did not return fire. Not yet. They held position, ships steady, armor unmarked. The relic's orientation remained fixed on the Council line, sensors still mapping, still learning. Dominance had been demonstrated. Restraint followed immediately. The next move, Catherine realized, would not be theirs. Distance ceased to be a comfort. The human ships moved without warning, not in a charge but a calculation. Drives flared white, then compressed into tight blue points as acceleration climbed past what Council doctrine considered survivable. 6G, 8. 12 sustained, held without oscillation or loss of formation. Council sensors screamed warnings as vectors updated too fast for prediction tables. "They're collapsing the envelope," Tactical reported. "All units, revise." Too late. The humans did not rush the center. They slid along the edges, slipping between engagement layers that had never been designed to move simultaneously. Their formation fractured into smaller elements, 3s, 5s, 7s, each burning on a different vector, each arriving at a different second. Timing replaced mass. Council ships tried to pivot, but their formation geometry betrayed them. Defensive screens overlapped. Firing lanes crossed. Safe distances vanished as human hulls crossed under minimum engagement thresholds, 3,000 kilometers, then 1,200. Punchline struck clean. They were inside doctrine. Close-range energy fire erupted, wild and rushed. Human ships weaved through it with brutal simplicity. No elegant curves. No waste. Just thrust, brake, slide, rotate. Acceleration spikes hit 14G for 2 seconds at a time, enough to snap inertial dampers on older Council cruisers watching from the perimeter. One formation lost cohesion entirely. A dozen ships drifted out of alignment, shields scraping against each other as they tried to re-establish spacing. Collision warnings, came the report. Multiple near impacts. Human ships used the gaps immediately. They threaded through, Armor forward, weapons still cold. Hull plating glowed faintly as residual energy from earlier volleys bled off into radiators and heat sinks. The relic moved with them. Not fast. Not aggressively. A steady advance at 1G, correcting its orientation by fractions of a degree, always maintaining line of sight to the densest clusters of council mass. Its presence forced recalculation after recalculation, dragging targeting solutions into obsolescence. Human elements are executing proximity doctrine, Tactical said. They're denying a standoff. Another punchline followed, quieter but worse. We can't pull back. To retreat meant crossing the same collapsing geometry in reverse. To hold meant letting the humans tighten the noose. Catherine ordered a coordinated burn to restore distance. 20 cruisers fired engines simultaneously. The humans anticipated it. They matched the burn within a tenth of a second, acceleration profiles tuned to intercept rather than pursue. Distances close to under 600 kilometers. Visual range. Hull detail visible to naked optics. Council gunners hesitated. At that range, misses meant friendly fire. Hits risked debris cascades. Human ships did not hesitate at all. They cut engines. Drifted. Let relative motion do the work. The silence was deafening. Numbers updated across the tactical display. Council formation integrity dropped to 63%. Then 51. Then 40. No ships destroyed. None yet. Just rendered helpless. The humans held fire, proving a point with geometry alone. They had taken control of space itself, of distance, timing, and choice. Catherine understood then that the battle had already passed the threshold. Not of destruction. Of inevitability. When the humans finally armed their weapons, there would be nowhere left to move. The first shot was a number. Not a roar. Not a flash. A timestamp, logged to the millisecond as the human fleet synchronized fire control across 67 hulls. When the counter reached 0, space itself seemed to flinch. Railguns spoke. Kinetic slugs crossed the last 600 kilometers in under a second, mass-driven, unlit, invisible until impact. 6 command vessels took the first hits, penetrators punching through layered shields that had never been designed to stop momentum without energy. Hulls ruptured inward. Decks folded. Atmosphere vented in clean, brutal plumes. Casualties updated instantly. 6 flagships compromised, Tactical reported. Command and control severed. Missiles followed, not in swarms but packets. 12 launches. Then 12 more. Each wave separated by exactly 8 seconds. Enough time for sensors to register. Not enough to respond. Punchline landed between impacts. This was scheduled. The missiles were not fast. They did not need to be. They rode the geometry the humans had already stolen, approaching from angles council point defenses could not cover without firing through their own ships. Countermeasures lit space in frantic bursts. Half the missiles died. Half was enough. Secondary explosions walked down carrier spines and through internal hangars. One vessel lost containment entirely, reactors scramming too late as the hull tore open. Another spun, dead, tumbling end over end through debris it had made itself. Catherine watched 3 centuries of doctrine collapse in under 30 seconds. Return fire, he ordered. Council weapons answered out of instinct. Energy lances slashed at human ships at knife range. The hits registered. Armor flared. No penetration. No kills. Human fire continued, methodical and cruel in its restraint. Railgun salvo 2. 4 seconds. Impact. Railgun salvo 3. 4 seconds. Impact. Each volley removed another node, communications, logistics, fleet coordination, never random, never excessive. The humans were not fighting ships. They were deleting functions. Numbers stacked up on the display. 8 command vessels destroyed. 17 carriers disabled. 0 human losses. The relic joined the count without ceremony. Its forward structures opened, revealing launch apertures older than Council civilization. From them came compact objects, dense, silent, accelerated to a fraction of light speed over impossibly short rails. They did not explode. They arrived. 3 Council dreadnoughts ceased to exist in the same instant, reduced to expanding clouds of incandescent debris as their mass was converted violently into heat and motion. Punchline followed, flat and absolute. No energy signature detected. Then came the nuclear option. 1. Only one. A human missile arced away from the main engagement, bypassing ships entirely to detonate in empty space at precisely calculated distance. The yield was small by planetary standards. Enough to flood a specific volume with hard radiation and electromagnetic pulse. Council sensors went blind across a swath 50,000 kilometers wide. Shields flickered. Backup systems failed to boot. The humans did not exploit the blindness. They waited. Why are they stopping? Someone whispered on Catherine's bridge. Because the arithmetic was complete. The remaining Council ships drifted, commandless, formations shattered, weapons hot but useless. Firing now would be slaughter. Advancing was impossible. Retreat meant collision and crossfire. A human channel opened, wideband and unencrypted. Engagement paused, the voice said. Transmit surrender codes. Power down weapons. Medical aid is standing by. No triumph. No threat. Just terms. Catherine's mandibles trembled as casualty projections finalized. 34% of his fleet rendered non-functional in under 6 minutes. Losses climbing only if resistance continued. This was not annihilation. It was control. He understood then the true terror of human warfare. Not that they could destroy you, but that they would stop once you could no longer choose. The guns fell silent. Debris drifted. Timers reset to 0. And in the sudden quiet, the humans held the field, waiting for answers that could only be counted, accepted, or refused. Silence followed victory, deliberate and enforced. Human ships powered down their forward batteries first. Then secondary systems. Across the battle space, weapon charge signatures fell to baseline in a sequence too orderly to be accidental. Timers reset. Targeting locks disengaged. The relic dimmed its arrays and held position, mass steady, orientation unchanged. A wideband transmission replaced the noise. It was not a demand. It was a declaration. Hostilities are suspended, the human voice said. By our law. Data packets followed the words, flooding every open channel. Not propaganda. Statutes. Jurisdictional frameworks. Rules of engagement written in clear, translatable syntax and anchored by dates older than the Council's oldest living members. Anti-slavery provisions came first. Any vessel carrying bonded crews, forced labor contingents, or penal conscripts was ordered to power down and prepare for inspection. Medical teams were already en route. No reprisals. No processing fees. Liberation was mandatory. Punchline struck, cold and unmistakable. Slavery voids all claims. Surrender protocols followed. Clear thresholds. Power down weapons. Transmit codes. Maintain life support. No scuttling. No last stands. Ships complying would be boarded, not destroyed. Crews would be detained, not executed. Council commanders scanned the documents in stunned silence. The language was precise. Brutally so. There were penalties listed, harsh ones, but none involved annihilation. Trials were specified. Evidence standards. Representation rights. Catherine felt the weight of it pressed down harder than any kinetic strike. Trials, he said aloud, though no one had asked him. Yes, the human voice replied, answering him directly. War crimes are adjudicated. Not erased. Another punchline followed, quieter, Heavier. We don't kill prisoners. Across the fleet, compliance indicators began to blink. One ship. Then another. Then dozens. Weapons went cold. Reactor outputs dropped. Escape pods remained docked. The humans did not rush. Boarding craft launched only after confirmation. They moved with restraint, approach vectors slow, transponders open. Medical signals lit up as casualty lists were exchanged. Human ships diverted power to triage bays and environmental stabilization for disabled council holes. The relic transmitted once more, not to the council, but to the humans alone. A short exchange. Confirmation. Acceptance. Then it spoke publicly, its ancient systems translating human law into its own archaic framework, validating it with authority that predated the council by millennia. Legitimacy confirmed. That broke something fundamental. Council observers realized, almost in unison, that this was not an occupation. It was incorporation. A legal gravity well forming around human doctrine, pulling ships, crews, and entire political assumptions into its orbit. Catherine watched as his own flagship registered a boarding request marked non-hostile. Medical priority noted. Command staff listed for detention, not termination. He authorized it. Resistance would only increase casualties now. And for the first time in his career, surrender did not feel like extinction. The humans had won the battle 6 minutes earlier. Now they were winning the aftermath, one statute at a time, proving that dominance meant nothing without restraint, and that the law, once invoked, did not retreat. They had not arrived late. They had arrived when expected. The realization did not come from the humans, but from the observers, neutral coalition vessels that had hung back from the engagement, recording everything with the careful distance of historians who had learned caution the hard way. Their channels lit up now, not with fear, but with recognition. That ship, one analyst transmitted quietly, was never lost. Data unfurled across shared feeds. Ancient encounter logs. Fragmented myths. Disappearances written off as cosmic accidents. Patterns that only resolved once someone survived long enough to compare centuries instead of campaigns. The relic's design lineage predated the Council by at least 4,000 years. Its architecture matched warnings buried in Coalition archives, references to exterminator-class threats that did not conquer worlds, but erased them. Civilizations gone without debris. Stars left quiet. The ship had been built as a counter. And it had been waiting. Humanity's preparations snapped into focus with brutal clarity. Their doctrine. Their ship geometry. Their insistence on kinetic weapons in an age obsessed with energy. Their armor layered not for elegance, but endurance. Crews trained under sustained G-forces that would pulp most species. None of it was improvisation. Coalition archivists cross-referenced human history and went still. Their wars had never been about expansion. Always containment. Always survival. Always preparing for something worse than their current enemy. Punchlines surfaced from the data, undeniable. They trained for extinction events. The relic's king made sense then. Not genetic superiority. Not destiny. Compatibility. Humans still thought in terms the relic understood: sacrifice over efficiency, restraint after dominance, law after violence. The ship had not awakened to a voice. It had answered a mindset. Centuries earlier, when the relic's builders had searched for successors, they had not chosen the strongest species or the most advanced. They had chosen the one most likely to still be standing when the warning finally mattered. The humans had inherited the watch. Coalition vessels began transmitting revised assessments back to their governments. Threat classifications updated. Political models rewritten. Humanity was no longer a regional power with unusual doctrines. They were custodians. Catherine received fragments of this analysis while confined to a medical bay, restraints loose, wounds treated with efficient indifference. No interrogation yet. No punishment. Just data passing through channels he could still access. It explained everything he had failed to understand. Why the humans had not rushed. Why they had stopped firing first. Why they spoke of trials instead of vengeance. This was not their first rehearsal. It was another checkpoint passed. The relic confirmed the coalition's conclusions with a final disclosure, partial, deliberate. Records of joint exercises conducted centuries ago with early human fleets. Doctrinal exchanges. Fail-safe transfers. The handoff of a burden, not a weapon. Preparation logged, 400 years continuous. Kethrin closed his eyes. The council had thought it was processing a relic. In truth, it had stumbled into a system that had been waiting patiently for the galaxy to catch up or fall behind. The humans did not celebrate the revelation. They adjusted deployments. Reassigned crews. Updated threat matrices. Because the relic had not awakened for the council. It had awakened because the timetable had reached its mark. The second phase began at a time already agreed upon. Not shouted. Not announced. Logged. At precisely T+12 minutes from the ceasefire declaration, Human Command released a synchronized update across every compliant channel. It was short. Procedural. A schedule for de-escalation, enforcement, and control. Those who complied would be boarded in order. Those who stalled would be isolated. Those who resisted would be neutralized. No ambiguity. No improvisation. Human ships moved first, but not as a wave. They redistributed. Escort elements peeled away to shadow damaged council holes. Boarding craft launched in disciplined packets, each matched to a specific ship class, crew count, and internal layout. Timers counted down in parallel, dozens of them, each tied to a single objective. Council ships that had powered down were approached at 1G, transponders open, weapons visibly cold. Docking clamps engaged. Breach teams entered without cutting tools, welcomed by captains who had already lost the ability to choose otherwise. Punchline registered across the battle space. Surrender was faster than resistance. Not all accepted it. A cluster of 47 council vessels on the outer perimeter attempted a breakout burn, engines spiking in unison as they tried to flee beyond the relic's sensor envelope. Human pickets responded within 2 seconds, acceleration profiles already calculated. Intercept vectors closed the gap at 14G, human hulls flashing past with brutal precision. Railguns fired again, limited and exact. Not to kill. To disable. Drive sections were punched through. Power cores were vented into space. One ship lost thrust entirely and began a slow, helpless spin. Another fired blindly and struck a neighbor, the collision tearing both apart in a cloud of debris and atmosphere. The humans did not count those losses against the schedule. They adjusted. Boarding actions continued elsewhere, relentless and calm. Medical teams followed security units, triaging wounded council crew and liberated bonded laborers alike. Human medics did not differentiate. Pain was pain. Injury was injury. Council resistance collapsed unevenly, then all at once. Compliance indicators blinked from red to amber to green across tactical displays. Cascades of surrender codes rolled in, ships powering down in waves as captains realized the pattern. Another punchline surfaced, quieter but final. The timetable did not slow. The relic oversaw it all, its ancient systems acting as a coordinating spine, synchronizing human actions across thousands of kilometers. It adjusted boarding priorities based on life support degradation, rerouted human ships to stabilize failing hulls, and flagged war crime suspects for secure detention rather than general processing. Nothing was wasted. Not time. Not motion. Not lives. By the 30-minute mark, 70% of the remaining council fleet was either boarded, disabled, or in the process of surrendering. Another 15% drifted powerless, crews awaiting instructions they no longer trusted their own command to give. Only a handful of ships chose defiance. They were dealt with last. Human forces isolated them completely, clearing surrounding space to prevent collateral damage. Warnings were issued. Time given. When refusal persisted, the response was swift and contained. Railgun strikes to reactor housings. 1 missile per target. Clean kills, measured and recorded. No cheering followed. The relic transmitted an update visible to all. Engagement phase complete. Human ships shifted posture again, weapons fully cold now, focus turning inward to custody, care, and control. Prisoner counts climbed. Medical bays filled. Shuttles ferried liberated crews to temporary habitats spun up from human logistics ships that had arrived without fanfare during the fighting. Coalition observers watched the final numbers settle and understood the true scale of what they were seeing. This was not victory by overwhelming force. It was victory by calendar. Every move had been planned. Every contingency rehearsed. Humanity had not reacted to the Council fleet. They had processed it. Catherine, still confined but lucid, felt the last illusion drain away as he reviewed the final report. 83% of his force neutralized with minimal loss of life. The remainder detained, scattered, or destroyed only when no other option remained. The humans had not needed rage to win. They had needed patience. As debris fields stabilized and the last surrender codes were acknowledged, the battle space grew quiet again. Not the fragile quiet of fear, but the enforced calm of order restored. The schedule ended exactly on time. What followed would not be war. It would be administration. The first thing the prisoners noticed was the silence. No alarms. No shouted orders. No executions staged as warnings. Human detention bays were bright, clean, and painfully ordinary. Restraints were firm but humane. Wounds were treated before questions were asked. Food arrived on schedule. It was disorienting. Catherine sat on a medical cot, chest bandaged, a human medic adjusting a diagnostic without urgency. The being did not meet his eyes, not out of disdain, but professionalism. Injury classified. Treated. Logged. You are stable, the medic said. You'll be transferred for holding once your vitals normalize. Holding. Not processing. Not disposal. Punchline settled like weight. They meant it. Across the captured fleet, the same pattern repeated. Council officers separated from crew. War crime suspects flagged quietly and removed without spectacle. Bonded laborers escorted to recovery zones, many refusing to leave their former posts until humans physically guided them away, promising, again and again, that no punishment waited for them. Human law spread faster than human ships. The broadcast went out within the hour, relayed by coalition channels and hijacked council relays alike. Terms of surrender. Jurisdictional guarantees. An invitation, cold, legal, unmistakable. Any system rejecting council authority and accepting human legal oversight would receive immediate protection, trade normalization, and representation at upcoming tribunals. No annexation. No tribute. Just law. Council member worlds began to answer. First, quietly. A mining system on the fringe powered down its defense grid and transmitted acceptance codes. Then a trade nexus followed, citing internal revolt against bonded labor quotas. Within 12 hours, 7 systems declared provisional alignment with Earth's framework, suspending Council directives pending review. Council authority fractured along fault lines that had existed for centuries. Punchline echoed through diplomatic channels. They chose courts over fleets. Human administrators moved in alongside soldiers. Contracts replaced ultimatums. Inspectors replaced overseers. Every change was documented, time-stamped, appealable. It was infuriatingly slow, and impossible to argue against without admitting guilt. Catherine was brought before a preliminary tribunal 3 days later. Not a trial. A classification hearing. Charges read. Evidence summarized. Rights explained. He was allowed counsel. Allowed. He listened as his own orders were played back, his authorizations highlighted against statutes he had never believed applied to him. The humans did not accuse him of evil. They accused him of crimes. That distinction cut deeper than condemnation. Outside the chamber, news feeds tracked the political collapse in real time. Council fleets recalled, or ignored. Member species demanded inquiries. Emergency sessions dissolved into shouting matches as defections mounted. The Council had ruled by inevitability. Humanity offered predictability instead. By the end of the week, the Council's central authority existed mostly on paper. Its symbols still hung in chambers, but power had already shifted, to courts, to inspectors, to systems that had decided Ash was no longer an acceptable outcome. Catherine signed his detention acknowledgement without resistance. For the first time, surrender felt like survival. The humans did not celebrate the defections. They lauded them. Prepared oversight teams. Scheduled audits. Victory did not change their posture. It clarified it. Across the former battle space, debris fields were cleared, prisoners processed, and law took root where fire had failed. The Council had promised order through fear. Humanity delivered order through restraint. And the galaxy, watching closely, began to choose which one it preferred. The signal appeared 3 weeks after the last tribunal session adjourned. It did not announce itself. It slipped into the data stream the way radiation always did, quiet, persistent, indifferent to borders. A deviation in background noise at the edge of human sensor reach. A pattern that did not belong. Human analysts flagged it within 40 seconds. The relic confirmed it in less than one. The signature matched archived parameters pulled from its deepest vaults, records older than the Council, older than most living star systems. Energy dispersal curves. Transit scars left in spacetime. The absence of debris where debris should have been. Exterminator class. Coalition observers were looped in immediately. No secrecy. No delay. The data spoke for itself, and the humans did not soften it. This was the same enemy. The relic projected its historical logs into shared space. Worlds that had gone dark without battle. Fleets erased without wreckage. Species extinguished so completely their names survived only as error corrections in ancient star charts. The Council had never faced it. Humanity had been preparing since before it knew what to call it. Punchline surfaced in the analysis summary. This was never about the Council. The signal's vector pointed inward, not outward. It was moving toward inhabited space on a trajectory that intersected 3 former Council core systems within 18 months. Its velocity was steady. Its emissions unchanged. No reaction to being observed. It did not know it had been seen. Human command convened without ceremony. Fleet deployments adjusted. Shipyards shifted production priorities overnight. Kinetic stockpiles were audited. Civilian evacuation protocols reviewed, then quietly expanded. No speeches were given. The relic transmitted a final clarification, stripped of symbolism and myth. It had not been a weapon waiting for a master. It had been a warning buoy with teeth, entrusted to a species likely to survive long enough to use it properly. Humans acknowledged receipt. Coalition governments watched the response with a mix of dread and relief. There was no panic. No collapse. No desperate diplomacy. Just motion. Catherine received the update from confinement, the same way he received everything now, through clear channels, with context, without manipulation. He read the projected casualty models, the probabilities of success, the estimated timelines. For the first time since his capture, he laughed. A short, broken sound. So that's it, he murmured. The real war. A human guard outside the field glanced in, expression unreadable. Yes, they said. That's it. The difference lay in the next steps. The humans did not debate whether to respond. They debated where to meet it, how to limit collateral, and which systems would need reinforcement first. Law followed strategy as naturally as breath followed exertion. The relic systems synchronized with human command, ancient and modern architectures aligning without friction. Old war logs updated with new assumptions. Timetables extended. Burdens shared. The galaxy was no longer unprepared. As fleets repositioned and the signal continued its silent advance, a simple truth settled across coalition space. Humanity had not awakened an ancient ship. They had answered a call that had been waiting for the right species to survive long enough to hear it. This time, the signal would not go unanswered.